You know, as someone who grew up with pocket watches, who has kind of thought about watches his entire life, this is really a special moment for me. I think back to looking at watches with my grandpa and think about what he would think if he was still here and I got to tell him all about what we're going to experience today. We're in Switzerland, in Geneva for Watches and Wonders, but before all the action starts at the PAL Expo with all the brands, we're taking some time today to visit Vacheron Constantin for a big announcement. I've heard a couple things, I've seen a little bit of a preview. First things first, it's a pocket watch and I'm the pocket watch guy. Second, it's going to be an incredibly complicated watch, something that's taken, I believe, 11 years to work on. So we're going to get in a car and head to Vacheron headquarters, sit down with the heritage director of Vacheron, Christian Salmoni, and break down what is not only a big accomplishment for Vacheron, but for the history and the future of watchmaking. I mean, it's rare to see anybody doing pocket watches in general. I think other brands are willing to just say, we know what we're doing, we're happy to continue moving forward with what we've got going, but Vacheron is willing to really push it to the limit here and see what they can do if given the opportunity. Not holding my breath that the pocket watch beat will be that extensive, but I'm going to take every advantage of the opportunity when I have it, for sure. The Vacheron building is gorgeous, with spacious, modern views in every direction, and we were content just roaming around the halls. However, as much as we would have loved to spend the entire day there, we had a pretty tight schedule to keep. We only had a few hours to grab some photos, video, and sit down for an interview with the brand's style and heritage director. So, after a brief and closed-door announcement, here's the rundown. The pocket watch is known as the Berkley Grand Complication, a bespoke pocket watch crafted in 18-karat white gold. This masterpiece boasts 63 separate complications, 245 jewels, 2,877 components, and a weight of over 2 pounds. It also has the world's first Chinese perpetual calendar. It is the most complicated watch in the world.
The Berkley Grand Complication is part of Les Cabinotiers workshop. So as you know, Mark, so this is a workshop in which we are creating only bespoke watches or unique pieces. As we know, there's a huge difference with seeing a watch with pictures and to see it in reality. It's super impressive timepiece with quite important dimensions, so 80 millimeter diameter and 50.5 millimeter of total thickness. But I find the watch absolutely readable, despite the complexity of displaying the Chinese calendar. So for me, that was, wow, really a discovery. Yeah.
Before we get into what is really the crowning achievement of this timepiece, the Chinese perpetual calendar, let's go back to when Vacheron first set this record in 2015. The watch then was the reference 57260, with its 57 complications and the inclusion of the Hebraic calendar. An incredible achievement commissioned by the same client as the Berkley Grand Complication, American businessman W.R. Berkley, making him the owner of the top 2 spots for the most complicated watches in the world.
It made sense to take the base of the caliber 3750, which was at the very heart of the reference 57-260. However, our watchmakers, they made some changes. Typically, I would say the split-second chronograph. We used to be a double retrograde, and here is in a much more traditional way. On the back, you have quite a few astronomical complications, like the sky chart, so sidereal time, which is based on the North Hemisphere that you can see from Shanghai. You have sunset and sunrise, duration of the day, duration of the night, based on the Shanghai latitude.
And you also have another calendar for China that is almost more emotionally driven, the agricultural Chinese calendar.
So the agricultural Chinese calendar is based on a real or true solar year of 365.25 days. And so the idea of this calendar is to rhythm the seasons. So there are 24 seasons of half seasons in China. And within these seasons, you have dates or periods in which you're supposed to do things or in which you're supposed to witness something. I love very much the 6th of March, which is the insects are waking up. But that was basically a calendar very much used for farmers, for planting, harvesting, and including the notion of rainy days, hot summer. So it's a very practical one. I think also that the three watchmakers, they have revisited the caliber by making some, if I may say, improvements. It's a base which can be compared, and obviously you see it, because when you see both watches, you see that there is indeed, a family air, if I may say. I don't know how to say it in English.
You said it's like a sister watch.
Yeah, like a sister watch, yeah. A sister watch, but even more complicated. That was the decision of the clients. The commissioner wanted really to have a watch which had the similar aesthetics, same material, same kind of case, etc. So as we are talking about a bespoke watch, that was really the idea of our client.
You have a lot of engineering even that goes into the case of this watch.
Yes,
to
very much.
Turn the bow, was it, for the alarm crown?
Yeah, sure. So there are multiple interaction with the case, a lot of, I would say, levers, which are used to drive mostly, I would say, striking complications, like the Grande Petite Sonnerie. And we have this great feature, I think, which is in a Grande Sonnerie, you have a Grande Sonnerie, Petite Sonnerie, a silent mode. And our client has been requesting to have, let's say, a night position. Mm-hmm. And so he asked us to make the watch silent between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., even if the watch is set on Grande Sonnerie, for example. I find this idea super interesting.
Okay, the crowning achievement here, I would say, is Chinese traditional perpetual calendar. Yep. You said you had to spend a significant amount of time studying this.
So I spoke with my colleague, chief engineer for the design of the Chinese perpetual calendar. So he told me he had to study more than 1 year the complexity of the Chinese calendar, and then to translate it into algorithms that he had to test, and that finally he decided to create not one mechanism but three that are working together into taking into account the irregularities of the Chinese calendar, because it's a lunisolar calendar with a lot of irregularities. So I think this is really a fabulous technical achievement, yes, very much.
The 57-260 had sort of a similar issue that it tried to solve with the Hebraic or Judaic calendar, a Metonic calendar, as they call it, where it's based off of the moon and the synchronization of moon. And was that helpful at all in trying to solve this question, or was it kind of starting from scratch?
No, I think the Metonic calendar or Metonic cycle is used for lunisolar calendars, because after 235 lunations, so 19 years as a matter of fact, so you get a reconciliation between the solar time and the lunar time. So this acts a kind of regulator for both calendars. The big difference with the Chinese perpetual calendar is that it takes into consideration aspects which are, if I may say, far from my culture at least, which are really these celestial stems having 5 elements and the polarity yin-yang, and 12 earthly branches which are associated with 6 energies and also this yin-yang polarity. So this difference is that the Chinese calendar is also used for other applications than simply time. So Chinese medicine or astrology typically associated with the 12 zodiac signs of the Chinese calendar. So there are multiple entries to this calendar, and definitely higher degree of precision than the Gregorian one, which is much more pragmatic. On myself, I would say I think there is a kind of magic with pocket watches. I always loved the pocket watches. As we know, some pocket watches made really the history of watchmaking. So you know them, you know these great collectors such as Henry Grave Jr. or James W. Packard. So I think we are really reconnecting with this kind of great collectors from the past, challenging the Vacheron Constantin to create, to really push the boundaries of its watchmaking art. So I think this is really the emotional point.
It's kind of an overwhelming experience to see a watch of that magnitude. It's really something that you have to live with to really understand what happened there.
Did I ask you too soon?
No, well, I mean, I'm not going to live with the watch. I mean, I think that you literally have to live with the watch to understand what Vacheron accomplished. The Chinese perpetual calendar goes for almost 180 years before they have to change one component, one gear to reset the perpetual calendar. So, I mean, nobody even in our world right now will experience this thing to the fullest potential. So it's hard for me to comprehend it as somebody that just got to have a few minutes with this thing. I got emotional thinking about explaining this to my grandfather if he was still alive, as someone who's responsible for my interest in watches. I don't know what he would think. I mean, he was a very traditional guy. The only watches that he really had were, he had one complication that I know of in his collection. So he was a guy that liked simplicity and like the minutia of history. But when you see something like this, it's hard to not give credit where credit is due. And I think even somebody that's as traditional of a mind and with his own favorites would have a hard time denying that this is something worth at least taking a pause and appreciating as a moment in history, for sure.